It is 4 p.m. Shall we get started?
Sure. Wait, let me just, okay. Yes, okay, is everybody ready? Okay, cool, so let me just get over to the right place so I can start. Okay, my name is Mele Sax-Barnett. I am Senior Manager, Customer Engineering at Urban Airship, and okay, so 3 big questions probably. So what in the world is Urban Airship? What do we do? You could go to www.urbanairship.com if you want like the marketing version of what we do. But the real version of what we do is powering the push notifications and in-app messages and collecting some app usage data in a lot of the apps that are on your phones. Probably like, I forget what the percentage was, but it was something like, at least, I feel like we're in like at least half of the major mobile apps that are out there right now. So we are all up in your apps, as well as mobile wallets. So that means like boarding passes, coupons, like every time you board, like an Alaska Airlines flight, like we're making your boarding pass, things like that. And some of the new things that we're starting to do are also pushes on websites, sending emails, sending SMS. And the whole idea behind that is offering companies ways to interact with their customers in, hopefully not annoying, best, well-directed and relevant information that they actually want to receive in the right way, and only collecting the information that is actually important and actually matters to good targeting and not any more than that. So we work really hard on trying to help people do this well. So what does my team do? So the customer engineering team, we handle support tickets that are things that the support team can't take care of, or technical account managers, implementation folks. They run into a problem, they can't get it totally figured out for our customers. They hand it off to our team, customer engineering, and we try to track it down, figure out what the problem is, maybe fix it ourselves, hopefully, or else we get the ticket in real good shape and hand it off to our back end or front end, engineering teams, whoever the right people are, to look at the issue and get the more complex ones fixed. We also maintain our open source library, so our customers will use our APIs to do all kinds of things, sending pushes, getting data, and we have libraries in 4 different languages, so Python, Java, Ruby, and even PHP to talk to our APIs. And my team maintains those. And we also manage and make sure customer impacting emergencies are well documented, so we know like what happened and why, and we can track trends over time to try to prevent them from happening over and over and over again. And by managing, it's often like managing the communications. So the engineers that are trying to, in an emergency, like troubleshoot an issue and get it fixed, like, oh my God, the website's down, what are we gonna do? They can work on that. And then everyone else can bother my team about, hey, so it says the website's down. Does it mean this website? Does it mean that website? Does it mean just this part of the website? Which customer wrote in about it? When's it gonna be back up? All of that stuff, like we can handle those questions. And then the engineers can work on like fixing the thing fast, so that's good. And we also build and maintain some internal troubleshooting tools that our team uses, as well as customer success teams use to troubleshoot something that's going wrong with a customer. So we have like a varied role. We do lots of different things. It's pretty fun because we have to know about our whole entire platform. So everything from pushes to wallet passes to what does this report mean over here in a corner, troubleshooting data products, all kinds of stuff. So we get to know a little bit about everything and understand like how customers use our product. And that's fun. And it can be really cool for helping our team, which are mostly junior devs, figure out what they want to do, like where they want to focus and what they want to, be when they grow up as an engineer. So yeah, what I really like about my team that I manage and what I do is helping the team, find their path, figure out what they love about programming and how to get to the next level. As well as, other things I do is just, make sure we don't fall behind on tickets, help with major issues for strategic customers. So someone calls us up and is very upset that we had an incident and their notifications didn't arrive until several hours late. Things like that. I will help with those. And also I'm always on the lookout for like process improvements, doing hiring for my team, doing performance reviews, all that kind of stuff. So that's the short version. And, feel free to ask me any more you want about this stuff when we get to the questions part. Cool. So we'll start with my path. It is a long and twisty, windy path. And I just have like little things like popping up on here that were like important to me or were things that were going on with me. So after high school, I moved up to Oregon and I went to Reed, and I was pretty obsessed with books and classics and just all that kind of stuff. So I ended up studying philosophy and actually like focusing on ancient philosophy, like studied ancient Greek for 3 years and things like that. And that was really fun. And I also like learned how to argue with dudes a lot, and that was useful. And yeah, so I was pretty into books at that point. I, piddled around for a year after college, just doing whatever while I'm waiting for my partner to graduate from the same school. Then we moved down to California. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I need a job. We moved down to California too, because it was like, I miss the sunshine. I miss the ocean. I grew up in Hawaii, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need the sunshine. I need the ocean. Why not Los Angeles, right? Like, I have family there. It's cool. It'll be fine. It was okay, right? So I ended up working at Borders as like a job to make ends meet, and then pretty quick I ended up becoming like the merchandising supervisor and like interim operations manager and things like that at that store. And that was, fun and was going well, so I kept up with that for a while. After we got married and realized it was not actually tenable to live in Los Angeles, we moved back to Portland. And I started, kept working at Borders, but out of the Vancouver, Washington store over the river. In California, though, I actually got really into bike commuting. So, because the weather is always nice there, and it's way faster than driving because traffic, or taking the bus because traffic, and then there's parking, and that's all costs money, and we were super poor down there. I got really into bike commuting, and that made me pretty passionate about things like transportation planning, active transportation, things like that. So I, as Borders started going down the tubes, and it was pretty clear being in like a manager supervisor position, as we had to lay more and more and more people off, and it was pretty clear that the company was reaching its end. I was like, all right, I'm out. I went back to school, and I got caught up on all this kind of things that weren't required at all at Reed, because it's just like very ivory tower. So like I took econ and statistics and like things like that. And then got graduate certificates in transportation planning, so like urban planning stuff with a focus on transportation, as well as GIS, which is like mapping on computers, basically. And that was really fun. I was like, all right, I'm going to be an urban planner. This is going to be awesome, right? So that was the plan. So I landed an internship at TriMet, which is our local transit agency here. And it was like a dream job. Like, we got to work on this really cool project. We were putting all this, like, all the TriMet data and like data from our regional government, like into this project called OpenStreetMap, which is like Wikipedia, but for maps. So we just like edited, imported all this data and got all this stuff in there. And TriMet was doing this from, because they wanted to be able to use that instead of paying for proprietary map data for all of their systems, their trip planner and things like that. So we worked on that. We helped troubleshoot the trip planner as it got up and running, and then started doing other things like figure out how to transfer the data into other formats for like the mini buses that pick up, you know, senior citizens or disabled people and like deliver them to appointments and do turn-by-turn directions and things like that. So at that point, I fell back in love with computers. And that started a little bit as I was going to school for GIS too, and like took a programming class for like the first time ever, an official programming class. And I had done like, I don't know, I used to build websites for like friends and family, you know, when I was in middle school and things like that. That was great. I loved it. And then I think I forgot about computers for a while, you know, through high school and through college. And then I just found myself falling back in love with them. And I had a lot of fun just writing really complex, like SQL queries and things, doing the TriMet projects and starting to learn Python and things like that. I was like, oh my gosh, computers. This is amazing, computers. And I think at one point I asked, you know, and we worked with developers a lot on that project at TriMet. And at one point I asked my boss, you know, okay, so what do I need to do to be a developer here? And she's like, well, we don't really have developers that don't have computer science degrees. I was like, okay, that's dumb, right? I was really disappointed. And so, you know, before that and around that time, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn to code. Also because I guess I had a bunch of friends who were in the tech industry and actually were already at Urban Airship or, you know, other companies and were doing really, really well. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. They're making good money. They seem really happy. They have a lot of flexibility. Like, why don't I do that? Like, I like computers. I can computer, right? Let me try that. So there was Code Academy at that time was doing a program where it was called like I don't know if it was like Year of Code or something like that. And basically there were just all these projects that you would complete like throughout the course of a year. And I did the whole dang thing. Like, I was just like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time, you know, like once a week and just keep up the pace and get it done. And I did it and I was like, this is great. Towards the end, and then also at the same time, I got pretty involved with the PyLadies group here and did some cool, like, you know, participate in some classes with them. That was really neat, you know, learning Python, building a community, you know, building a community of like other women who were like second career trying to like get into tech. And it was just really neat. And yeah, some other things like that were just other online classes or with like local groups of women to learn to code. And then like towards the end of that year, my friend Michael, who I went to read with, who's actually one of the Urban Airship founders, was like, hey, come to our, you know, holiday party. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't have a dress. So I borrowed a dress from a friend. I went to the holiday party. You know, we'd been invited to like Halloween parties and like other parties before. So it's like, oh, cool. No big deal. This will be fun. But this time he started like introducing me to everyone around the room and saying, hey, this is Mele, she's cool, she's gonna work here. You know, this is what she's gonna do. You know, she's gonna work on our location product. She's been doing all this like mapping and location stuff. And I was like, oh God, is this like an interview? I wasn't ready for this. So yeah, he just walked me all around the room and I was like, oh my goodness, this is happening. So that was a surprise and also really helpful. And then right after that, I did an interview with some engineers, and then it was pretty clear that I wasn't quite ready to like step into engineering yet. So I ended up interviewing for just tech support. I was like, okay, well, this is a good way in. We'll see how it goes from there. About the same time, I got offered what would have been like the next level up at TriMet, GIS analyst, and found that the ceiling for that position, like the amount of money I would make, like about the same as the starting salary for tech support engineer. And that just like helped me, you know, make that decision. So yeah, I joined Urban Airship and did tech support for a little bit more than a year. And then I moved into the customer engineer role. And at that point I was like, yes, I finally get to code. This is great. I've been wanting to just code this whole time and be an engineer, and now I can like code and be an engineer. Because you don't actually get to code that much. It's like a tech support engineer. You get like a little bit of time here and there, maybe, you know, for projects and like helping customers figure out what they're doing, but you don't really get to just like sit and code and build a thing. So it was like, yes, this is it. I like got a couple of like Java PRs merged in after like really crazy like review processes, and I was like, all right, I did it, I do it. Okay, it's gonna be great. And then, so I'd been on the team for a couple months, and my boss sits me down one day after one of our stand-up meetings, and he says, okay, so I am going to go manage another team now. I was like, okay, cool, thanks for telling me. And he's like, I want you to manage this team. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm the newest member of this team. Like, how do you think everybody else is going to feel about that? He's like, well, I don't think they want to be managers anyway, and you're already doing a bunch of my job, like organizing everything. So, you know, I think you should do it. It was like, I don't know. I finally got to this place where I'm going to code. You know, why? I don't know. And then his boss, who was to be my future boss, like took me on a long walk around the neighborhood, and we talked about the trade-offs of, you know, being an individual contributor versus being a manager. And, you know, eventually I think on that walk, he managed to convince me to at least take a shot. So I took the job, and I did that for a little more than a year. And a lot of it was figuring a lot of it out myself, and that was hard. But, you know, I think I was able to implement a lot of things to make the team more efficient and just like, and be able to expand our responsibilities and yeah, things like that. You know, I started really getting the hang of it. And then one day my new boss was like, hey, you know, our operations team is having a really hard time. I can't manage them all by myself. They're really not getting along very well with engineering. Like, you have good relationships across the company. Like, you want to try coming over here and managing this team? And I was like, okay, well, I'll try, right? So, so I did that for a while. And then in the middle of that, I had a baby, and that was a thing. And if any of you out there, parents, like, you know, that's like quite a thing. Your whole, like, yeah, your free time and the way you think about things and all of that, like, can change completely. And it really did for me. And actually, even before I went on leave, I was thinking, like, okay, this role isn't really as much like what I really enjoyed about being a manager. So I really liked actually my old job a little bit better. And I had been talking to my boss about that before I went on leave. So when I came back from leave, or about when I was about to come back from leave, she was like, okay, so, you know, our new CE manager, his background was actually managing operations teams. You know, do you want to like flip back again? Because you were saying you didn't like that much anyway. You know, and I was like, sounds good, let's do it. So back to customer engineering. And I do really think that was the right call. It was a little like awkward at the time, but there were so many changes happening at that point with operations. You know, it worked out fine. I think it was good to be forthright with my boss about, you know, how I was actually feeling about that role. So anyway, so yeah, back to managing customer engineering and doing the same thing and making more improvements. And in October, I was promoted to senior manager. So that was pretty cool. I was very happy about that. And so what's next? I'm going to continue moving in the business direction, which, you know, I would have been very surprised about, you know, a couple of years ago. I think when I became a senior manager, and maybe it also had to do with like them starting to not invite all of the managers to leadership meetings anymore, like only the directors and up, and me feeling kind of sore about that. I was like, okay, I don't want this to be my ceiling. I want to keep moving up. I want like to have an impact on like the important decisions that the company is making, you know. I don't really want this to stop here. Plus, like, wouldn't it be cool to actually understand all of the business terms that they use in all hands meetings and that stuff? So I decided to go for an MBA program, which I'm going to start in the fall. I'm pretty excited about that. And this is me. So now it's just question time. So anything that like you guys want me to expand on or just ask about or, you know, whatever. It's up to you. And I can bring slides back up if you want me to, but probably hide them now. What do we got? Anybody? Oh, this one, maybe?
Hi, Mele. Oh, can you hear me?
I can a little bit. I will sit closer to the mic. What's up? Oh, no, it's silent. We lost them.
I have a question while we're waiting.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Posey. Hello. Curious, you started an MBA program, and does your work offer tuition reimbursement, or how are you going about balancing that?
Yeah, so I still kind of need to figure that out. Yeah, it doesn't start till the fall. I'm definitely going to need to take out some pretty big loans, and that's something I had to think, you know, real hard about and make sure that, you know, my husband was okay with, because like we were almost done paying off all of our student loans, and it's like, okay, like take out a bunch of money, like that is definitely going to affect our finances going forward. But, you know, I think it's going to pay off, you know, maybe not right away, but, you know, certainly like within 10 years or something, I certainly hope it would pay off. And then I make even more on top of that. So it should be fine. Like, that's the whole point, right? But as far as tuition reimbursement goes, we have a professional development fund here that's like calendar year based. It's not very much. It's like, it's under $2,000 a year. But, you know, it adds up over like 3 years of calendar year. So that'll be helpful, you know. So I'm hoping to take out about half of the cost in loans and do the rest out of pocket and just kind of figure it out. That's my plan. We'll see if it actually shakes out that way.
Very cool. Well, good luck, and thank you.
Thanks.
We have some questions in the chat.
Oh, we do.
This is Helen. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I was actually wondering if I could share a computer science volunteering need from Portland schools, high schools, quickly.
Okay.
Yes, so I work for Microsoft Philanthropies and a team called TEALS, and we believe that every high school in the United States should have computer science, and in Oregon, less than 24% of high schools have any type of computer science course. So the way we can solve that problem is we pair up software developer volunteers with an existing classroom teacher. Our volunteers actually go into the classroom and teach computer science, you know, for the year. Usually we pair up 4 volunteers with 1 teacher, so our volunteers go in 2 days a week, and they teach computer science while the classroom teacher learns alongside their the students. And after 2 years, 97% of the classroom teachers can teach on their own. So we've just expanded to Oregon. We're in 500 schools in 33 states. Like I said, Microsoft Philanthropies. If anyone's interested in helping out these Oregon schools, I have 18 schools that really need, especially women software developer volunteers. It's also a great way to network for new jobs, because we have over 1,100 volunteers from all around the United States that have a pretty tight community. It's WWTEALS, TEALSK12.org. Again, that's www.tealsk12.org. And thank you for anyone who is interested in helping out local high schools.
Cool. I'll spread that around our office too.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Sure. Okay, let's see. The first question on here I see is, What would you say is one of the biggest lessons I've learned about being a woman in tech, especially for those coming out of code schools? That's hard. That's hard. Lessons. I think that for me, I was already comfortable with, probably because of my philosophy degree and the kind of like dudes I had to argue with all the time to earn it, with, you know, earning my spot, with holding my spot with my opinions and on my teams and in meetings, and just being able to speak up and like just, you know, having a little bit of that extra confidence after surviving that whole like ego experience. So I was already in a pretty good spot with that. I think that a lot of people will probably struggle with, you know, just the usual like being talked over and I mean, all of the teams that I was on here, I was actually the first, like the only woman on the team until like some time passed. So like on tech support, I was the only one. Until by the time I left, there were a couple that I left behind. So that was good, you know, and on to customer engineering. I was the first woman on that team. And now, you know, I manage a team and there are 2 women on the team also. And so that's pretty cool. Also, my manager is a woman, which isn't, you know, very common around here. And she's a senior VP, and she is great, and she's been an awesome mentor, and that's been really important and helpful to me, to have a mentor like that who I feel like we understand each other well. But really, like, you know, it can be tough to just like persevere when you're the only one, and especially like if you don't have a CS degree, like someone coming out of code school with like just basic knowledge, or you're self-taught, it can be really intimidating to be like, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I have no idea like any of this stuff. Like, how am I going to learn all of this? What am I even doing here? But the thing is, like, you get through it, and hopefully you are at an office where your coworkers are awesome and supportive and like help you succeed, and you have managers who are awesome and supportive and help you succeed. And I think like that's why I have been able to be as successful as I have been, because actually like this has been a really good place for me to work and grow. So hopefully you can, when you land those first jobs, hopefully you can like scope out the right kind of place and get an opportunity in a good kind of place that will, you know, nurture you and support you, even if you are the only one on the team, like that they want it to be better and that you have good managers and you know, they're supportive of you. So I don't know, it's kind of like a wacky question. I don't know if there's like one thing. Okay, what am I hoping to get out of my MBA program? I feel like really to get to the next level and to get like executives to listen to my opinions about things, I need to have more business knowledge. And the MBA will also just help me be a more legitimate candidate for things like director and VP positions in the future. So those things mostly, I think that's it. Also, like, I was surprised to find that I was actually interested in the material when I went to some of these classes. I was like, all right, business, this might be boring, but actually it was really, really interesting. And a lot of like the things that they were doing were like, okay, it's a group project, you know, but it's like they go through the process of like what it would be like to build a business from the ground up, like business plan, like pitches, like all that stuff. And it's like, hey, this is really cool and actually super useful. And I just thought all of this is actually going to be really super useful. And I talked to actually a couple of other women who are at this company that are doing MBA programs right now. And they were both like, I was really surprised, but every day I learned something that I am applying at work like right away that I learned in my MBA program. So it's like, okay, cool, let's do it. So we'll see. The biggest challenge when it came to switching careers, I was really, really lucky to have the connection and the introduction from our founder, who was my friend, to get into UA. I don't know that I would have been able to do it on my own. And it's really, I didn't think I was ready yet. I thought that I still had a lot to learn. And, you can do that for a really long time. You can keep, like, I need to learn a little bit more about coding. I need to learn this other language. I need to learn this other framework. You can go on like that forever and still not really believe that you're ready. Like, but, if you've been able to learn some stuff on your own, you can figure it out, when you get there. And like technology is changing so fast. I don't think it really matters like what you know right now as much as like that you can learn new stuff. But I still would have been like, I don't think I wouldn't have thought I was ready to apply for jobs, but my friend gave me the boost, and suddenly I was in there and I was applying for the job, and this is what was happening. And that, that forced me to make the transition. Otherwise, yeah, I probably would have taken the analyst position at TriMet and kept doing that. But I heard, this is the good news, my friend who was also, who had also been an intern with me and a technician with me, he ended up taking the analyst position, and then he decided he really wanted to be a developer too, and he did end up being a developer there, even though he didn't have a computer science degree. So good for him. But yeah, okay. Let me look at the other questions. I have heard at some places in Portland, it is very difficult to shift from tech support engineer to an engineering position. Do you think you were an exception at Urban Airship, or did your workplace support that transition? So the way that our two teams work together, customer engineering and tech support, is they really are kind of a pipeline on purpose. And it can be a slower pipeline sometimes or a faster pipeline. Like, people commonly went from tech support to customer engineering to back-end engineering team. Like that's a normal progression around here. And still most of the people who I have on my team took that path, came out of tech support. So it's kind of like a known, yeah, it's a path that we support around here. It's not always fast enough for the amount of like talent that we have at the company. Like, there are some really talented people in support right now, and we just don't have the positions on my team or on engineering to like help everybody move up to the next level. But it's something that we really try to do around here. The hardest part isn't so much the move from support to CE, because I really try to encourage that. And we do outside hiring too, but a lot of our people are internal. As the next level, which is from CE to engineering, because I think that we still struggle a little bit with engineering teams understanding what we do exactly and what our knowledge is, and for people on my team to be able to prove that they're ready to be a back-end engineer. We often struggle with like, are there enough resources on these other teams to support leveling up these juniors? And so it's hard for those managers to decide, do I want to just hire a senior from outside the company? Should I take a chance on these juniors? And, I always try to argue with them and say, look, these people, they already know everything about how the system works. In general, like, they're going to know way more about all this other stuff than the people you already have on your team. All they need to learn is like the deep dive on your team. And, sometimes that argument works and sometimes it doesn't. So I work pretty hard at trying to get my people placed on other engineering teams when they're ready. But sometimes the positions aren't there. It doesn't always work out. But you do have to spend usually at least a year on our support team before moving up, if not more than that, depending on when positions are available. We're a pretty small company, so that can vary a lot. Okay. Last question so far. As I move to the next level of management, am I still able to write code? So I never really got to write that much code. I get to write code every once in a while. Little projects like automatically generating our like SLA uptime and things like that, like how much downtime did we have and stuff like that. Like some poor soul used to have to do that manually every every month, and like I just run a thing now, and that's nice. So I get to code a few little things here and there, but we have a little bit of a joke around here about manager script and how really like they usually cause incidents and emergencies. So no, managers don't get to code very much around here, especially not important stuff. And that's okay. You know, I've become okay with that. And it was weird. It's like, okay, I did all this stuff I wanted to code, and I never really got to do that. I never got to like build a project, you know, build a new feature and ship it. You know, I got to do like bug fixes, but that's about it. And so it's hard for me also thinking about my future of like, okay, like, would I be able to have the level of expertise to manage not just a team of junior engineers, but a team of senior engineers? Like, would they trust me in my judgment about computers, like when I didn't really do that much, like significant, you know, like hardcore coding or whatever. And, you know, struggled with that a little bit, but I think I've just kind of like decided that that's not as important as like other strengths in management that I have. I've just kept working on that. And I've learned a lot about how the product works, and I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of other strengths that make up for it, but I'm still trying to convince myself of that in a way. When hiring, what do I look for in potential candidates? So one of my recent potential candidates is sitting here, but I'm not going to bother her. So for my team, I look a lot for kind of like what I was saying, which was someone who can show me that they can learn things on their own. And it's not so much a matter of like what they know now, but like what they can learn, because, you know, a year or two from now, what you're going to need to know about programming is, you know, some things are going to remain the same, but like the principles are sure, but like the languages you're using might change. The tools and frameworks you're using are probably going to change. So it's just a matter of like, can you learn new stuff as it comes along? Because that's way more important. Also, people that know like when to ask for help. You know, they can do some stuff on their own, but they're not going to wait too long to ask for help. Oh man, I have this whole list. I feel like I should have prepared it. I have a bunch of interview questions if anyone wants me to share them later that I like. What else? Yeah, just like passion for figuring out problems is especially what I look for on my team, because it's just troubleshooting something new every day. We don't see a lot of the same stuff. So it's a matter of like, what's your process for troubleshooting problems? How do you stay organized when you have a bunch of different tickets and projects you're juggling at the same time? Also because of like, you know, what my team does. I don't believe in whiteboard coding. I've never had a whiteboard coding interview, and I don't want to inflict that on other people either. So I don't do that. I know some teams that have like project-based things, and that's good too, except sometimes they take too long and like aren't actually applicable. But yeah. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. But a lot of that is very particular to like my team and what we do. But yeah. Cool. Okay, I just talked a lot again. Does anyone have anything else? Silence. I see a lot of people. Anything? Oh no, awkward silence now.
Mele, this is Carrie. I would love it if you would talk about some of those sample interview questions that you were talking about.
Oh gosh. Okay, let me try to pull them up.
That's something that launch coders come up against all the time, is just kind of what to expect and kind of the confidence building that goes into hearing like.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so the thing about my questions are, they just might not match very well with like what other people are doing because of the nature of my team. But things that I think, so I guess I'll look over this real quick. Things that are really important to me, like first off, are like, okay, if they require a cover letter, actually write about the position and the company in the cover letter. That is my like first thing I use to weed people out, is like, did they take the time to like write about why this position in particular at this place is interesting to them? And then so I asked them in the interview again, like, why do you want this position? You know, why do you think this will make you happy? What about your skills makes this a good like fit for you? Because it's like, even if, and I usually want like people that come onto my team to have dreams of, you know, bigger dreams later. I also want them to enjoy this position, because I don't know how long, you know, they might have to wait in it before, you know, whatever their dream position is, you know, on one of our other engineering teams opens up. So like, you know, do they love troubleshooting for its own sake? Do they love like working on things for customers? Thinking about customers. Let's see, version control systems. So something I like to ask is like, what's the biggest mess you've ever gotten into with Git or some other version control system? How did you get out of it? I like to ask that one. And also, what's the weirdest, most confusing thing you've ever done on the command line? You know, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen somebody doing on the command line? And, you know, talk about it a little bit. Yeah, I really like hunting down like examples. So it's like, tell me about a time when, tell me about this thing when. So like, tell me about something programming related that you taught yourself how to do on your own, like a new language or framework. You know, what resources did you use? What was the most challenging part of the process? Things like that. Because of the nature of our position, I also talk about or ask about a time when you were unable or unwilling to do what a customer wanted for some reason. How did you handle it? So things like that. It turns out it's also important as a developer, not even just on our team, but in general, to like know how to talk to people and work through conflict. So I ask about that too, is like, you know, tell me about a time when where was it? You had to work through conflict with somebody else regarding something you were working on. How was it resolved? You know, like, and, you know, bad answers to that are like, oh, I avoided that person. Like, that's bad. Because sometimes you can't do that, right? Good answers are like, you know, well, okay, we took some space and then we came together and, you know, we called in a third party or whatever it took, as long as the result of it was, yeah, I had this experience and we figured out how to get through it. And the answer wasn't like avoiding that person for the rest of my career. It's usually good. Example of like a big project that you had to keep track of details while still managing the big picture, you know, organizational questions, an example software engineering project you completed that like could be looked at, hopefully in like GitHub or something like that. Let's see. I also like tell me about a time you received a ticket to perform a task you've never done anything like it before. How did you get started? So it's just like, what is your process for figuring out something you've never seen before that you have to do and there's no way to get around it? Things like that. Things like that. So that's, yeah, I don't want to read you all of them, but that's most of them. So hopefully that's helpful.
Those are hugely helpful. I think hearing the variety and the context is really great.
Yeah, okay. So I see why don't you believe in whiteboarding interviews? I mean, I think I would be terrified and I wouldn't perform well. And maybe that's the biggest reason if I wouldn't perform well. And I think I'm the most successful at the kind of thing that I and my team do, then that's not a good judge of like what I want you to be doing on my team. But I don't know. I think, you know, memorizing random algorithms that you would be asked to reproduce on a whiteboard, like, is kind of silly, right? Because you don't program in a void, like, unless you're on an airplane when you don't have Wi-Fi, right? Like there's Google, there's resources, like you use your resources when you're doing stuff, and you don't like just do it by yourself, usually programming either. You are working with a team that is reviewing your code, providing feedback, you know, maybe you're working with them even more detailed in the whole like planning process, and you're just executing this part of it, they're executing that part of it. I don't know, I guess that's just the basics of it. I feel like, I don't know. I feel like tests are kind of silly because nothing that you would actually do in your day-to-day work would look like that. I'd rather see like a project that you took time on, you can tell me about, you can talk about how long it took and like all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think I wouldn't do well on them, and I don't think I would know how to judge them either. So maybe that's it. Cool. Anybody else got stuff? Maybe. Let me see. I'm trying to think of other stuff I didn't talk about that maybe I normally would have, but I think I talked about all the things. I don't know.
Mele, this is Carrie, who runs the LaunchCode operations in Portland. I just really want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's really important that we kind of amplify the experiences of folks who don't come the traditional CS route, and how that kind of takes this interesting windy path. It's not this directly linear thing. And so, and especially as those are women and non-binary folks, I'm really excited about this partnership to be able to feature these stories. So this is really great.
Cool, great, yeah. Happy to help. Yeah, Katerina messaged me and was like, you want to do this thing? I was like, okay, you want to talk to me? Sure, fine.
Yeah, we do. Are there any other questions from anywhere else before we do just a couple of final announcements and wrap up? I don't want to cut anybody off.
I have one question.
Oh, we have a question from the room.
Yes. So you said your philosophy degree helped you build confidence in arguing and like keeping your stance.
Uh-huh.
And I understand that I can't learn that lesson in a couple sentences, but can you share some insight onto like how to keep your stance, how to make an argument?
Oh man. I don't know. I think that the thing I mostly learned in that degree was, so I came into it I came into Reed being from a crappy public high school, you know, in Nowheresville, Hawaii, right? And definitely not as well educated or well prepared as most of my classmates. Especially, there was this one like super like yucky dude I was dating my first year who was also a philosophy major, and he was one of those guys who just like can remember everything, and he's too good for everything, and like doesn't need to take notes, and like just seemed really on top of it, so smart, and like came from this, you know, really good school and blah blah blah. Anyway, and I was just like, how, you know, am I ever going to be able to compete with this kind of thing? But the moral of the story is, at the end, he barely finished his thesis and graduated, and I got the honors and the prize money for writing the best thesis and being the top person in the program. So like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's about how much like work you're willing to put into it and how much you want to get out of it. And I think like a lot of just all of those classes of arguing with these people about, well, and just philosophy being complete BS, right? So I had to learn from being this really starry-eyed, like, this is amazing, let's solve the problems of the world, like, let's figure out the meaning of life, let's figure out the true political system, let's, you know, all of these things. I realized, no. Not only is this philosophy, like, for the most part, complete BS, but it's not going anywhere. And the huge thing is just a debate exercise with other people. And I think that once I started really figuring that out, and that the whole thing was just a thought experiment that you were like having with other people. It was like, okay, like it's just an idea, and there's always going to be a way to tear down an idea. Like you start out philosophy thinking, hey, we're going to work on this, we're going to figure stuff out, and then we're going to get to the truth, right? That's not a thing that will ever happen. Like, sorry if anyone out there is still really into philosophy. Like, getting to the truth and finding the answer that's going to save all the people in the world or whatever, like, that's not a thing, right? It's a thought experiment. Like, it's good things for people to think about, to become good people and, like, ethical people. And, like, I think that it's a good thing for people to understand, like, logic and, like, how to make arguments and, like, how to win arguments and all of that stuff, that you just start realizing with practice that it's just a skill, it's just a debate, it's just knowing how to tear down and build up ideas as you want to. It's just a practice that you can learn like anything else, right? So, yeah, plus there were just so many terrible guys I had to argue with every single day that I just like, I don't have a problem with it anymore, right? So it's just practice, I think. Sorry, I wish there was a trick. But, yeah. Last chance for anybody else?
I was always taught to wait 7 seconds.
Oh, okay.
7 seconds, which is like horribly painful when you're on a webinar, right? All right, there we go. Well, thank you so much for being here. Mele, thank you in particular for sharing your story. We have a couple of great more events coming up in Portland and online. So next month's speaker in this series with Women Who Code and LaunchCode is going to talk about the intersection of fashion and tech. So we're very excited, and that'll be a presenter out of St. Louis. So we'll meet back here. Same bat time, same bat channel, that whole 9 yards. And then LaunchCode Portland is having a meet and greet for folks who might be interested in being in our job seekers program, which is called Liftoff All in Tech. We're going to do that May 2nd. And then May 5th, Women Who Code has an awesome event coming up also that is a combination of algorithms review of skill sets there and mock interviews and whiteboarding. So you can find more about LaunchCode events at our Twitter handle, which is @LaunchCode. And then you can find out more about Women Who Code on their Meetup channel. They've got all of their many, many awesome events listed there. So, but thank you all so much for being here and for your great questions today.
Thank you for listening to me ramble.
Yay, rambling!
All right, cool. And yeah, get in touch with me on Twitter if you want to chat about stuff. Like, I'm up for coffees or whatever. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
All right,
cool.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.